Okay, so I want to start today with a scene that I think is going to be painfully familiar to anyone who's ever lived in a boarding house, or really anyone who's been through a tough academic program.
I think I know where you're going with this.
It's, say, 4 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday.
Yeah.
The morning's energy is gone, caffeine's worn off. You've just come out of a double period of something really heavy like chemistry or calculus, and your brain just feels like mush.
And the day is nowhere near done. That's the kicker.
Right. You're not going home. You're heading back to the house to change for sports, then dinner, then 2 hours of prep, then a house meeting, then,
Right.
well, you know the drill.
It's a relentless machine.
It is. And in that moment, that schedule doesn't feel like an opportunity. It feels like a grind, just a list of things other people are demanding from you.
It's that hamster wheel effect. When you're so deep in the routine, the lessons, the prep, the activities, you get this tunnel vision. You stop seeing the why, you just see the what.
Exactly. And that's where a deep dive today comes in. We're looking at this really fascinating piece of text. It's called What a Boarder Can Learn from Malala Yousafzai.
Which is a bold title.
It is. And I have to be honest with you, my first reaction was, a little skeptical. I thought, okay, are we really comparing a tired kid worried about a math test to a Nobel laureate who survived, well, an assassination attempt?
It sounds like it could be a guilt trip.
That's what I was afraid of. Comparing apples to, I don't know, heroism.
I totally get that. It's so easy to see a title like that and think, oh, great, a lecture on being more grateful. But after going through the source, I really don't think that's the angle at all.
Okay.
It's not about guilt. It's about a cognitive shift. It's about using Malala's philosophy to kind of hack your own experience of that Tuesday afternoon slump.
And that's the part that hooked me. The mission here isn't to say, go win a Nobel Prize. It's to answer a really practical question. How do we go from seeing school as this series of obligations, things we have to do, to seeing it as a tool we can actually use?
How do you stop being crushed by the machine and start driving it?
Yes.
And that whole pivot, it starts with the first major theme in the text,
Yeah.
the idea of privilege. But maybe not in the way we usually hear that word.
Let's unpack that, because privilege is such a loaded word, isn't it? When a teacher tells a student, you're privileged to be here, it can sound like a telling off.
Right, like stop complaining.
Mm.
And that just shuts the conversation down.
Mm.
But the source takes a different path. It contrasts the boarder's bad day, the prep, the rules, the fatigue, with Malala's reality in the Swat Valley. And we're not just talking about a lack of resources there. We're talking about active prohibition.
Powerful forces were telling girls, you do not belong here. This classroom is not for you.
Exactly. And that, for me, is the real aha moment.
In a boarding school, the message you get all day is, you must do this. You must study. You must pass. It can feel like a cage.
But for Malala, the cage was the absence of school.
That's a great way to put it. The school walls weren't confining her. They were liberating her. She literally risked her life just for a seat in a classroom.
And the text argues that if you can just borrow, say, 5% of that perspective, if you can flip that script in your head from, I'm forced to be here, to people have fought for me to be here, the whole psychological weight just changes.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. That's a very high-minded perspective to hold when you're staring down a 3-hour essay on a topic you find completely boring.
It is hard.
So does the text bridge that gap? Or is it just, idealism?
I think it does. It bridges it by reframing the chore as an investment. It says that lessons in prep aren't just hoops to jump through for your teacher. They're structures designed to support your future.
Ah.
The resentment comes when you feel like the work is for someone else. The shift happens when you truly realize the work is for you. You are the one who benefits from this grind.
So it's kind of a selfish act, but in the best possible way.
Yes, you're acquiring intellectual capital. Malala knew that education was the one thing no one could ever take from her. So the text is asking you, are you collecting that capital, or are you just sort of paying a tax?
I like that. It moves you from being passive to being active, which actually leads right into the second big theme from the source, which I found maybe the most surprising part. It talks about courage.
Redefining courage is how it puts it.
Right, because again, you look at Malala, and the definition of courage is just massive. Standing up to the Taliban, taking a bullet, speaking at the UN, it's movie courage.
An impossible metric. And the text says that's the wrong metric for a student in a dorm. Most of us, hopefully, will never face that kind of danger.
So what does it look like instead?
It focuses on what it calls calm determination. It strips away all the drama and just looks at the internal state. It's not about grand gestures. It's about these small daily acts of integrity.
And it gives a list of what these acts are in a boarding house. And I have to say, the very first one on the list is something I think a lot of people would see as weakness, not courage.
You're talking about asking for help when you're struggling.
Yes. Think about it. In a high-performing, competitive school, everyone is trying to look like they've got it all together. Oh, that test. Didn't even study.
Right.
Admitting you're lost. That feels like social suicide.
And that's precisely why the text calls it courage. It's identifying a specific kind of bravery, vulnerability. In a place where everyone's wearing a mask of competence, taking that mask off is a radical act.
It's saying, I care more about learning this than I care about looking cool.
That's pure Malala. She didn't care if people thought she was a troublemaker. She cared about the truth of the situation. So raising your hand in prep and saying, I don't get it, is actually an act of defiance against that social pressure to be perfect.
It's putting your growth ahead of your ego.
That's calm determination right there.
Okay, so what about the social side? The source mentions standing up for others and speaking up if something feels wrong. That's another minefield. You live with these people. You don't want to be the outsider.
And this is where the text adds a really important nuance. It says, and this is a quote, using your voice does not mean being loud or confrontational.
I think that's a huge distinction. We think activism is shouting through a megaphone or something.
We conflate volume with impact. But the source defines courage here as being honest, respectful, and brave. You can pull a friend aside quietly and say, hey, that joke wasn't okay. You can speak to a house parent privately.
And that's probably more effective anyway, right? It doesn't make people defensive.
Exactly. It's the difference between performing courage and actually exercising it. The calm part is the key.
Yeah.
You don't have to burn the whole house down to fix one problem.
Which flows right into the third theme. The power of voice. Because once you get that, you don't have to be aggressive. You realize you have way more power than you think. The text says, young people's voices matter. And again, I can just hear the cynical teenager in my head saying, yeah, right, I have a 10 p.m. bedtime and I can't even choose what's for dinner. My voice doesn't matter.
It's so easy to feel like you're just a passenger, isn't it? The schedule is set, the rules are set, you're just along for the ride.
But the source challenges that. It says a school isn't a static thing, it's a living community.
And the culture of that community is defined by the people in it. So if the culture is toxic or boring or even supportive, that's largely on the students.
It gives you ownership.
A huge amount. The text lists these actionable steps. Sharing feedback respectfully, contributing in house meetings, supporting positive change.
House meetings, the time when everyone just stares at their shoes and waits to be dismissed.
Which is such a tragedy of lost opportunity. That meeting is the forum. If you sit there in silence, you're letting other people define your reality. The text is saying, take the wheel. Even in a small way. If you want a different common room rule or a new club, propose it.
It's the difference between being a renter and being an owner.
That is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Malala didn't wait for permission to be an activist. She saw a need and she spoke up. The text is just inviting boarders to treat their house like a community they're actively building.
That's what leadership is. Not the title, but the contribution.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've got privilege, courage, and voice. But then the text brings in a fourth theme, and this is the one I think is the hardest to swallow on a bad day. Gratitude.
Ah, yes. The G word.
It's everywhere now, #blessed, and it can feel so invalidating. If I'm stressed and someone tells me to practice gratitude, I just want to scream. It feels like they're saying my problems aren't real.
That's the toxic positivity trap. Just smile. It could be worse.
Exactly.
But I want to be really clear. The source material does not do that.
Yeah.
It explicitly says gratitude does not mean ignoring challenges.
Okay, that's a very important disclaimer.
It's vital. It means you can look at that calculus test and say, this is really hard and I am stressed. That is the true statement. Gratitude is the ability to also say, and I am in a warm room with a teacher who can help me, surrounded by friends.
It's about widening the lens?
Yes. Our brains are wired to focus on the threat, the test, the fatigue. Gratitude forces the brain to also acknowledge the resources you have to face that threat.
So it's a strategy, a tool for resilience.
That's it. It's a cognitive tool. Malala didn't ignore the Taliban, but she stayed focused on the value of what she was fighting for, and that focus kept her going.
The text points to a couple of specific things for gratitude, and one of them is so often invisible. It says to recognize the effort of the staff.
The whole ecosystem of support,
Yeah.
the house parents, matrons, cleaners, kitchen staff. When you're a teen, it's easy to see them as just part of the furniture. or even as the opposition.
But they're the safety net.
They're the team. And recognizing that creates connection. You're not fighting the system alone. You're being supported by it.
Yeah.
And the other thing it mentions is your peers, specifically, learning alongside others from around the world.
Which is a really unique part of the boarding experience.
It's a global hub in a single building. Your roommate might be from a totally different culture. The source is saying, don't take that for granted. That's a world-class education happening right in your bedroom.
It's funny, you can get so mad at your roommate for leaving a wet towel on the floor that you forget you're getting this incredible cultural insight just by living with them.
Don't let the wet towel obscure the bigger picture.
So we've shifted our view on the grind, we've redefined courage and voice, we've adopted gratitude as a strategy. But the text ends by zooming way out. It asks, why this matters? Why do this whole boarding school thing at all?
This is the so what section, because if the goal was just to get good grades, you could do that online. The boarding environment is designed for something else.
It's an incubator.
It is. The text lists 4 growth metrics: confidence, independence, responsibility, and global awareness. But it ties them all together with this mission statement. The goal is to become informed, thoughtful, and courageous individuals.
Informed, thoughtful, and courageous. I really like that. It feels like a complete person.
It is, isn't it? Informed is the academic part, thoughtful is the empathy, the community part, but courageous, that's the engine. That's the ability to take your knowledge and your empathy and actually do something with it.
And that brings us all the way back to the routine. You don't become courageous by reading a book about it.
You become courageous by practicing it. And the boarding house is the simulator. It's the safe space where you practice resolving conflict with a roommate, so one day you can do it in a boardroom. You practice managing your time now so you can manage a company later.
So the grind, the prep, the bells, the rules, it's not just random friction, it's resistance training.
It is the resistance training. You're building the muscle of character. Malala became who she is because she practiced her values every single day. The text is telling you, you're at a training ground. Use it.
There's one last point in the text that I found really comforting, because as all of this, it sounds like a lot of pressure. Building the future, being courageous, it sounds like you have to be perfect.
And that fear of messing up can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
But the text has this beautiful release valve. It says, courage does not require perfection, only honesty and effort.
I love that. You can have a bad day. You can fail a test. That doesn't mean you failed the whole mission.
Not at all. The text acknowledges that there will be days when school feels hard. That's a given. The question isn't, are you perfect? The question is, are you trying?
It allows for the struggle. In fact, the struggle is the point.
The struggle is the process.
Yeah.
If it were easy, you wouldn't be growing. Honesty about your struggle and the effort to keep going, that is the very definition of the courage we're talking about.
So we've gone from that rainy Tuesday slump to seeing the boarding house as a training ground for global citizenship. That's a huge shift.
It is, but it's an accessible one. You don't have to change your schedule, you just have to change your mind.
So here's the thought I want to leave everyone with today. The text wraps up with this challenge. These opportunities are shaping the future you are building.
It puts the ball squarely in your court.
Next time you're sitting in prep, and you're tired and frustrated and you just want to look at your phone, just pause. Ask yourself, what kind of future am I building with the choice I make in this next hour?
Are you building a future of resentment, of passivity, or one of calm determination and agency?
Because according to Malala and according to this text, that choice doesn't belong to your teachers or your parents. It belongs entirely to you.
And realizing that is the ultimate freedom.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.